All right, so I hope you enjoyed the last chapter where we worked with widgets, and we're going to continue customizing things here in our WordPress blog by now turning our attention to plugins. Now, what the heck is a plugin? Well, you might know about plugins from the traditional software world. For example, Photoshop has plugins and Firefox has plugins. Essentially, what plugins do is, well, they're like an extra add-on that allow you to expand the capabilities of your application, whatever that application may be. So, for example, one of the reasons why Firefox is such a popular browser is because of this customizability, this expandability. And likewise, one of the big reasons why WordPress is the most popular blogging platform is this idea of plugins and customizability. It's incredibly flexible. If you're a developer, you can create your own plugins and then share them with the WordPress community. Or if you're more like myself, more of a designer and a creator and not so much of a programmer, you can make use of other people's plugins that they've created and supplied to the community. Now, what's extremely cool about plugins is there are plugins for virtually everything that you can imagine. If you want to try and find a plugin that's going to allow you to display Flash video on your site, there's a plugin for it. If you want to make sure that your Flickr account is visible on your WordPress blog, there's a plugin for it. If you wanted to display your Twitter feed on your blog, yes indeed, there's a plugin for it. So there's a plugin for pretty much everything. It's just a matter of tracking the plugin down, getting it installed, getting it configured, and understanding how it runs. So sometimes getting your plugins to work properly can be a little bit tricky, can be a little bit hairy, but usually it's not too much trouble, and usually there's really good documentation with each of the plugins that you choose to use. All right, now that said, there seems to be, at least in my mind, two brands of plugins. Some plugins are going to assist with the unseen aspects of your blog. In other words, visitors to your site would be completely oblivious to the fact that you might be running some of these plugins. So in other words, there seems to me anyway to be a group of plugins that assist more with the running of your blog, maybe more of the admin aspects of your blog. Plugins that would help you with search engine optimization, SEO, for example, would be an example of a plugin that the visitor would be completely unaware of, right? We could also have plugins that would help us with our WordPress stats, so we can get some statistics back. How many visitors are we getting? What posts are they going and looking at? This sort of thing. And then there's sort of another brand of plugin that would help us with our blog performance. Again, all of these plugins remaining unseen, right? But then there's another batch of plugins that would be seen and would be used by the visitors to your blog. For example, a plugin that helps us create a sitemap for our blog, or a plugin that allows us to create forms, perhaps contact forms or feedback forms, right? Or, like I mentioned not too long ago, plugins that help us with video on our website, or perhaps audio, right? And some of these plugins, by the way, some of them appear in the sidebar of your blog, of course, running down either the left or right side of your blog interface, while others would possibly appear inside your posts, inside the actual posts that you and I write for our blog, while others still may appear elsewhere on your blog, perhaps in the header, perhaps in the footer, or somewhere else, right? Okay, so I hope all of that makes sense, and really we're getting into the fun aspect of WordPress here when we get into plugins. So let's go and take a look at a few of the default plugins that we have for our WordPress account, and we'll also activate one of those plugins as well. So I'm going to keep my preview tab open here inside my browser, and of course I'll just head back over to my admin console there, which of course I still have open. And right now I'm looking at my dashboard, but what I want to do is I want to go and look at my plugins. So over on the left hand side, look for your plugins menu, go ahead and expand him, and I'm going to click on installed. Now, we saw this screen way back when, and this screen essentially allows us to manage our installed plugins. And I mentioned earlier that we have 2 plugins that are installed for us by default. They're not activated, they're just installed at this point. We have Akismet and we have Hello Dolly. And if you'll recall, Akismet is going to help us with our spam in our comments here. Akismet checks your comments against the Akismet web service to see if they look like spam or not. You need a WordPress API key. We'll talk about that in just a second. To use it, you can review and catch spam as it catches under comments, and so on and so on.